This is the Tesoro AI podcast with Darius Gant. AI is changing the world and fast. This episode is coming to you courtesy of Tesoro AI, the #1 recruiting service for software development and AI talent.
All right, Prem, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking some time out to join us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I want to dive into what possessed you to get into the wild, wild west that is recruiting. Before we go there, though, let's talk a little bit about your kind of career pre-humanly, your product experience, worked at, Microsoft, which everyone knows in kind of being one of the global competitors in this LLM-driven world. But we'd love to hear about early career experience and then kind of what inspired you to get into the HR space.
Yeah, no, it really started from a candidate standpoint. So when I graduated from University of Washington, that was my kind of first entry into the application process and eventually the workforce. So I was applying to lots of different companies, and I just remember I was kind of surprised. I wasn't expecting this, but just never heard back from anyone. And as I got more experience, I realized that is kind of expected. About only 5% in these high volume jobs of people actually hear back versus like an automated response. So negative candidate experience. And then when I did get interviews, I would compare notes with my colleagues, and it just seemed like the interviewers were just randomly like they'd ask me these questions and ask my colleague a different set of questions. There just didn't seem to be structure. And I was like, what's going on here? So then I spent about 6 years in our HR tech, our HR IT department. And, we were building tools around talent acquisition, employee engagement, performance management, everything in the HR and talent acquisition umbrella. And, I quickly realized it wasn't that recruiters or interviewers were just like bad people trying to ignore us. They just didn't have the time to engage at scale. And so that was, and I felt technology could solve that. So, left Microsoft, went to the startup world, went to TINYpulse, where we focused on employee engagement. And then we started Humanly to kind of solve that problem around engaging at scale and screening candidates about 5 years ago.
Yeah. And so as you think about Humanly, is the pain point that you were trying to solve what you were just speaking to, and kind of someone applies, never hears back, or part of the process gets ghosted by the recruiter? You also mentioned candidate engagement early on. So the recruiter's ability to find the right candidates. I mean, specifically when you thought about Humanly, was there a point of, a solution you were specifically trying to build to a specific pain point?
Yeah, good question. So, and I think it's kind of a two-sided problem. So my first kind of experience was on the candidate side. As I learned more, in one of my roles at Microsoft after we acquired LinkedIn was kind of looking at how we can bring all that data and some of the use cases into the Microsoft ecosystem. And I started learning about, I interviewed a lot of recruiters and TA leaders at that time. Obviously, since then, have done a lot more of that. But on the hiring side, so about $7 billion is spent right now by US companies in manually reading through resumes, screening, going back and forth and scheduling, re-engaging candidates. So usually when you spend $7 billion, hopefully you're kind of solving the problem, but you're not really, because you're still just getting to 5% of candidates. So you're solving like 5% of the problem. And then candidates aren't happy. So there's an ERE study that came out recently saying that candidate resentment in application process is at an all-time high. And these candidates can be your customers, they can be your future employees. So the problem was like there's just much too much time spent on the manual aspects of processing candidates, and it's not working either for candidates. So when we thought about Humanly, our goal was to, and now with some of the AI infrastructure updates, it's a really great time for a solution like this. But just like sales tools have evolved from Salesforce that wasn't good enough at engaging with prospects, to Outreach, which was made for engaging with prospects, to Drift and Gong that are actually helping you in those two-way conversations with prospects. That's the journey we're trying to take recruiting tech. And specifically, we want to make it so that you can engage with everyone that's interested, either interested through a sourcing campaign outbound or that's applying. So everyone gets a two-way conversation right away with the company via technology. And it's not just the company screening them in or out, it's them asking questions. So if we can get everyone that's interested into a two-way chat and then automate scheduling, you're getting the qualified candidates to humans faster, and the ones that aren't a good fit are on deck maybe for a future role.
Yeah. So interesting. So it's working two ways. When you say that, does that mean that when a job rec, a company has a job rec, they have both the ability to reach out to candidates who have not applied, but they also have the ability to engage candidates who have applied via some sort of job post platform, whatever it may be?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so if our goal is to help companies engage with everyone, and then
Hmm.
also provide some level of outcome for every candidate, it might not be getting the interview. It might be, here's another job. The way it works is you either tell us our system about the job, or you sync it from your applicant tracking system. And then once you have the job, we're building for you a series of outreach emails that are
Okay.
personalized, that have information in them we think will convert. There's also SMS, and we're the candidate pool you're talking about. So we build you a candidate pool. So it'll
Hmm.
pull one from our database of about 600 million candidates. Another is your ATS, so all the candidates that have been historically in your ATS. Other is on the employee side. So if your employees have synced their LinkedIn profiles in, so we'll tell you, oh, this candidate is good in Darius's network, so you should ask him for an intro. So those are kind of the pools of candidates. So our database, your ATS, and then the employee referral piece. So once you have that
Is
pool,
that
then
just referral, or is it like if we have an employee that is connected to someone via LinkedIn, you can also kind of see, oh, your friend might be a good
yeah.
fit, or do they have to actually make the referral first?
No. Yeah, no. It's a first one. So then
Okay.
you ask them for it. Like, they're not proactively referring, but you can click like ask for intro, and it'll send them a message. So
Yeah.
and even as you're like browsing the web, we have a little Chrome extension, so it might say, oh, you're looking at this person's info, Darius knows them. So really you have that whole pool, and then you can trigger the email or SMSs to get to all of them. And if they respond positively, we're detecting automatically positive or negative response, and you can send them to a scheduling chat, a Q&A chat, whatever the next step is. Yeah.
Yeah, and is the email? Are you creating the email, or does the team go in? They create whatever that outbound is. How does that work?
Yeah, good question. And there's a lot of like I can there's a lot of intelligence in how we're choosing the matches, but
Okay.
once the matches are created, the emails are generated by us. So we have four particular roles in industries. We might know that, hey, talking about this part of your employer brand is going to create a higher conversion. So we're creating the email. It also has a personalized content thing you can pull in. So if you're getting the email, it might say, hey, Darius, we saw you had experience working at this company. So it will feel personalized. And it will also have like a way of them then getting to the next step, whether that's an automated phone screen, a human being scheduled, or whatever the next step might be for that particular role.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I know one of the major pain points, especially as far as the recruiters that we've worked with, it's, you know what? I don't even have time to, go through a search process, find the right candidate, right, that has this kind of list of skills and capabilities that we need for a particular role. And you mentioned having a pool of what I think you said 600 million, and then the ability to kind of reach out either through the job post or pull candidates in through the job post or through recommendations from friends or from employees. Do you is there a specific industry that you're focused on as it relates to the pool of candidates, or is it pretty broad?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we are more specific, and I'll speak to that. And And yeah, to your point, like basically, like if I'm trying to find the best person for this job, if I had like unlimited time, money, and resources, I'd probably have a conversation with everyone in the world. And maybe this person in a teaching job now might have some transferable skills to this product job. So probably talk to as many people. So we're trying to allow you to use tech to talk to everyone and
Mm-hmm.
not, and then spend human time with the most important ones, or the ones that are the best fit. But to answer your question more specifically, so we're generally targeting higher volume jobs. So these are entry to mid level roles. They are across a variety of industries, and we have a kind of deskless worker scenario, and then also one for professionals. So entry to mid level, it could be someone coming out of university or someone with 3 years of experience. And it's a variety of industries right now in those areas. The ones that are most common to us on the professional hiring side, so not the deskless side, but the office knowledge worker side, are financial services plus insurance, accounting, banking, tech,
Okay.
healthcare. Those are the most common. We do have a few others, and to us, it's the industry focus is important in the sense like we for that email campaign and all the stuff we're curating to be most effective. There are variations in industries and roles for what you'd say if you're trying to recruit this type of candidate versus that. Yeah.
If you're a hiring manager and you appreciate the unique skill sets required to build AI solutions, then I would highly suggest you get your hands on our AI talent salary guide. As you know, one of the greatest challenges in building AI products is acquiring the right team. Over 100 plus pages, we dive deep into our global AI talent acquisition strategies. And with our networks in Latin America, we also provide you with actionable advice on how you can scale up your AI team cost efficiently. Once you explore our AI talent acquisition strategies, you'll never look at hiring the same way again. Links are in the description. Yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned, as far as the engagement like scheduling, have you built your own tool? Like, what's the process once a candidate says, "Hey, I'm interested"? What's that next step to get them on the
Yeah.
schedule or to determine? Because I imagine some people are interested in the companies. Like, yeah, this is not the right candidate. I don't want them to immediately go to schedule.
Yep. Yeah. So here's the most standard flow, and it can vary by role type. It can also the customer themselves can change it up, but the most standard flow is you either apply through the standard ways that you apply. So maybe you apply through LinkedIn, you apply through Indeed, or you apply through the career site. So you then get into the applicant tracking system, and everyone that is there then gets sent a link in email or SMS to Humanly. Everyone you've sourced, so in the outbound emails, the ones that have expressed interest also get that same link. So you're getting everyone to Humanly at the point of interest
Okay.
or right at the point of application. And in our standard flow, yeah, you're not taking them directly to scheduling. There are some cases where maybe you have like a curated list of people you're emailing and you want them to convert to scheduling. But usually what happens is you go to a screen that's delivered via our chat agent on mobile or desktop, and we're asking more questions to qualify you, and you're also, the candidate's also able to ask questions about the company, which we find if they've thoroughly screened the company, they're going to be less likely to ghost, less likely to drop off later.
Right.
So all their common questions are answered. And then the next step is, it could be two things. It could be taking you to an automated phone screen. So we're calling you on the phone or over the web here, or you could go straight to a human. So we do have that extra kind of phone screen layer for some roles. Once you get to a human, the human has a handoff in their applicant tracking system. So they can see, okay, here's what the chatbot found out. Here's what
Mhm.
happened in phone screen. So they're going in prepared. And our goal is for you to have qualified candidates within days or weeks on your calendar. Usually you will have a few like right after, and they'll be
Mhm.
flowing in through the weeks that go forward.
Awesome. So that first point of connection is that experience with the chatbot. There's questions being asked back and forth where, I mean, I imagine one of the first questions a candidate has, if it's not all already on the job. So what does this pay? What does this job pay?
Yeah, of course. Yep. And the interesting thing there, just briefly, is because that's a good question, where our bots know, okay, Darius is in Colorado, so if he's asking about pay, we need to incorporate the Colorado pay transparency laws to answer it. So if you're using just like chat GPT out of the box or something, like we've built a lot of recruiting specific intelligence and guardrails so that this is happening as a recruiter would behave.
Yeah. And so, as I think about kind of the traditional recruiting process, you've got teams that'll simply post to LinkedIn or post to one of the many other job boards. They may go the extra step to reach out to candidates directly on a one-to-one basis, but that doesn't scale as much. And then you may reach out to maybe a headhunting service if you need to kind of get that extra reach, right? If it's specialists.
Yeah.
With you guys, you kind of get a kind of an aspect of all of that. I'm curious, as you think about the traditional process, your process, and how you've layered in AI, what's the special sauce AI is bringing into the mix to make this from sourcing to, I guess, in your case, first interview, and correct me if I'm wrong, it may go beyond that, but I'm curious what the special sauce with the AI is.
Yeah, for sure. And to scope it as I answer that, yeah, we do go into the interview, but that is more helping humans. So our AI agents will then join the interview, take notes, put them in the ATS, draft follow-up emails for you, and also like give feedback. Like we have reporting around efficacy or topics that come up that might be more likely to convert candidates. Really, anytime there's a conversation with a candidate, we want to be there. From an AI standpoint, so yeah, certainly a lot has changed. So I think similarly to how cloud computing made SaaS possible, and SaaS not just from like a product standpoint, but how you sell it, how customers value the product, how you price it, how you build it. We think this AI step change is making all those new things possible. So we kind of think humanly is born out of AI, just like SaaS is born out of cloud. So it's more specifically, there's a lot in the past around filtering candidates using like keywords, and this is like not AI, and oftentimes it's really just like shortcuts being used, so you don't have to talk to everyone because you don't have time to talk to everyone. So you need to move beyond the keywords. So in a matching sense, we're using skills, we're making inferences. So if someone has project management skills, we can infer that they probably have time management skills, planning skills. So skill-based matching is a big piece. We're also looking from an AI standpoint at what candidates have had success in the past. So if we see that, so when you load this up, you can even go on LinkedIn and plug in to our model in the UI, like LinkedIn profiles. You might say, I want someone like Darius. And we're very careful from a bias standpoint to not use certain things that would cause similarities in a bias sense. But from a skills standpoint, maybe Darius has these 5 skills that we're also looking again at the candidates that you've put through the process in the past for a similar or the same role, and using that to train the model as well. So the AI is used in matching. In the channels we're talking to candidates, so that's via chatbot, email, SMS, and phone. The engine that decides what we're saying in the emails we curate or what the chatbot's saying. AI has allowed us to get very far there. So LLMs have made it a commodity to have technology talk to humans, and we're trying to make it so that technology can actually recruit humans. So knowing that that Colorado pay transparency example from a compliance standpoint, but also knowing that for this role, this thing's most important. So I should ask this question. So that's another component. And we're also, so in the chats themselves, And in like actually creating these channels like voice, like chat, one thing that's a little newer to us right now is we also want to give value back to the candidates.
Right.
So answering their questions, giving them interview prep advice, telling them what skills they need. So we now have, this hasn't been launched yet, but we have an internal beta where it's a voice agent. You can talk to the thing like Siri and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of job. What skills do I need? And it's using our data based on what has worked, like which candidate, what skills candidates that have had success in for this role and for our
Okay.
companies have exhibited in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So the candidate could then kind of hunt for the jobs that are going to make the most sense for them. Um,
Yeah.
and I think you'd be a great person to ask about this. As you mentioned, bias can come into play. If you're looking at, who's been successful in this job before, maybe the company has a history of hiring from a particular school or a particular demographic, right? But you don't actually want to be canceling candidates because the model is saying, well, they didn't go to Stanford. Who's here went to Stanford. As you think about building a model that is assessing the fit of an individual for a particular role, how have you taken steps to avoid scenarios where you'd be caught in bias, and how may you discuss that with customers, right? Hey, look, we want to make sure we don't run any legal issues, while also bringing you candidates who you may not have otherwise seen who have been a good fit.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is, as a customer, don't just take my word for it. Like I would want any vendor that you might be looking at to be audited by a third party. So we were one of the first to get really deep on this. We have pretty good historical auditing. We can also run an audit in real time. So similarly to if you're an enterprise that requires like SOC 2 compliance, ISO compliance, and ask for that report, I'd ask for an AI bias report, a recent one that's not done by the company themselves, but by a third party. So that's one thing. But where a lot of the bias comes in is like the examples you mentioned where someone went to college. I think because it's impossible to talk to everyone and learn about everyone deeply, you're kind of using shortcuts, so the
Right.
list is smaller. And even a resume is like a big like a shortcut in many ways too, a shortcut to get to know someone quickly. So we're trying to make it so you do talk to them more fully and learn about all these different things about them, not just where they went to school. The actual matching itself is not looking at things like where they went to school, obviously things like gender, which would be illegal to, but humans subconsciously sometimes do look at those things, and it's not great, right? And we're not ever going to replace humans, but I do think recruiters that use AI may replace those who don't. So from a bias standpoint, I would say anytime you're scaling your impact, and technology helps you scale your impact, you're also scaling your risk. So right. AI and tech can make things happen faster and more efficiently. But if you have the wrong people in process, it can also make the wrong stuff happen more efficiently wrong and more quickly wrong. So it always starts with the people in process, and look at your full candidate journey and think about where do you really want AI, or where do you want automation? And the last thing I'll say is if you're using AI to do a human job, as you're thinking about bias, as you're thinking about, is this the right thing for us and for our candidates? I kind of think about it like you're hiring a human. So write a job description for it, interview it. So what skills and experience does it have? Like where is it? What data is it trained on? Is it a culture ad? So I would take a human that costs a little more in many cases over a chat agent that costs less if the chat agent was impacting my company culture. So I think thinking about those sort of things, because I do think the CHROs of the future are going to be managing a workforce that is part human intelligence, part artificial intelligence, and knowing what to use which for is going to be key.
Yeah, interesting. Now, in terms of who's using humanly, are these kind of the frontline recruiters? How does it work in terms of just engaging with the technology? Are you plugging into something like, I'm sure you're plugging into their ATS, but some of the other HR systems that they're using?
Yeah, so our thought process here is if it's not baked into workflow, it doesn't exist. It doesn't really matter, right? So very much. And when I was at Microsoft, one of my jobs was around building APIs so companies could plug into our systems. So yes, we're certainly plugging into the ATSs. There's some stuff we're doing on the HRIS side, so we can look at things like how the employee ended up performing their tenure and use that to train
Mm,
our models.
right.
So most of our customers are, if they're coming to our system, all their data from the ATS is there, and they're using us to like communicate with candidates and process them.
Right.
But they're working out of the ATS to do those next steps, moving to offer stage, reporting. So we're very, very plugged into the many ATSs, and there's a smaller list that we have more direct partnerships and deeper integrations with. So any candidate that talks to Humanly will be updated in the ATS.
Mm.
And if you're configuring questions to ask candidates in your ATS, we're pulling those into what the chats are asking. So you're not like reconfiguring stuff on our side. So yeah, and I think like right now we see the world as, you have your systems of record, and then you have our layer around that, which is interfacing with the world's candidates.
Yeah, one of the applications that I've recently seen, and I feel like you alluded to, maybe you guys have this capability, but there you could apply to a role. The first interview is actually with an AI, where like you're talking to, you're having an actual real conversation interview with an avatar. Obviously, it's using some sort of LLM to have, but the conversation is two-way, right? You can ask questions, and then it's asking pre-planned questions on behalf of the company. Is that same functionality what you were describing, or was it just a slight different?
Yeah, I know it's definitely the same. I think that where we are a little different is we're not like trying to appear as though it's a human and overly personify it. Like we feel like if we're solving the problems of the candidate, like it should be very clear to them it's technology. So there's not like we're not like giving it a human name and like an avatar in that case specifically, just based on our like research and whatnot. Tricking people obviously is not what we're doing. Not saying that
Yeah.
others are trying to do that, but I have seen some stats and pitch decks around 80% of candidates thought they were talking to a human. Like that's not going to happen here. But yes, what you're describing is accurate. But to us, it's more like we want to be across the different channels. So like voice is one channel, SMS
Mhm.
is another, email is another, phone's another, and allow, like, we have our templates, but we want to allow our customers to choose what is best for each use case. So yeah, that is generally how it works.
Yeah, I've heard of some companies going, and I would love to get your perspective on this. Trying to pull data from, like, let's say it's a video interview, attempting to pull data from facial expressions and tonality, trying to analyze sentiment in the interview itself. Have you all explored that? Would love to get your perspective on whether that could be valuable to an interview process or just more risky.
Yeah, no, there's ways of doing it right and obviously wrong as well. So what we do there right now, so we have an agent that will join a Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet interview, takes notes, writes follow-up emails, puts stuff in the ATS, but there's also a set of analytics, and we're delivering those right now to, like, because of the risk, like we want it to be pretty curated. So we'll deliver it in like a quarterly business review, but there is like basic reporting. Generally, when you're looking at video and audio, it's safer to look at audio. I know there's been companies, I won't name them, but companies that have been sued for
Right.
things like facial expression or eye contact. If someone is sight impaired, they're going to have a different eye contact spectrum, perhaps. So there's ways you can really get, and like gender bias is pretty prevalent with some of the things that are looking too much at video.
Mm.
We're analyzing the audio, but and we're able to look at anything from empathy, partnering with Dr. Grinlord and a company called Empathic. She's a PhD in psychology, and the company measures empathy through active listening. We can look at, are you sticking to the interview script? So are you standardized based on what you've been trained on? So are you hitting these topics? And we found some interesting things. We found with one company, and not everyone wants to turn on this level of reporting because
Mhm.
there could be some implications, but they were having trouble converting women. They wanted a more gender diverse organization. And we found in Zoom calls, junior women were literally getting like 10 to 12 minutes less to even speak. Also, we're finding other things like just the speed at which like I'm speaking right now. If you're speaking over 150 words per minute, it disadvantages candidates where English is a second language. We've also seen higher sentiment based on location. So if I'm a Seattle recruiter interviewing a Seattle candidate, our data shows the Mariners, when the Sonics will come back, and spend more time in small talk, about a minute and a half more in small talk, which makes me actually like the person more, which is not good. It's biased. So yeah, we think, you can't change what you don't measure. And with virtual interviews, you can measure everything. It's more just how we package that and what our customers actually want to measure so that they can actually make changes.
Yeah. Are you seeing more enterprises because they they just have more people, would need to do more hiring? Or are you seeing, more adoption from small businesses?
Yeah, good question. So generally mid-market to enterprise, so companies that are 1,000 plus are where we're focused. And you're right, partly due to the volume. We do have a lot of small businesses. I actually was just going through our customer list, so I have the exact number. So yeah, we have about 127 small businesses using it, and they're mainly using it for the sourcing aspect. So for going out and finding top candidates and finding that like hard to find candidate versus the other piece.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to come back to the AI piece of this, right? Like, you all are a startup. It's not like you are just McDonald's and you're like, hey, look, I'm going to build this system to us. We're going to figure out who's performed the best. We have data on that. We're also going to figure out, we have a huge database coming from our ATS, right? So we can pull in a bunch of data to train an AI. I'm curious for you, as an AI startup, what was your starting point to getting the data necessary to actually, become an AI startup, whether it be working with partners or public data? Just curious around that.
Yeah, no, and I definitely consider ourselves like a data company, and we use data to build AI to solve for talent acquisition problems, and not to like I won't go too hard on this, but I actually would argue that we'd actually we'd have an advantage over McDonald's trying to do this in the sense of the architect, like the agentic architecture it takes to build. It's kind of like if you, before cloud and SaaS, if you built everything on premise and SaaS comes in, you can't just like change it all or when like mobile came out, there's people like faking mobile experiences that don't look as good as iPhone now. So it's kind of hard if you have a bunch of tech already built in infrastructure. But to your point, you made a really good point, Darius, which is the data side. Clearly, as a smaller company, we would not have as much data as what I do find at those larger companies, though, is that while they have a lot of data, it's not accessible. It's not stored in the right way to use for AI models. So it might not be easy to use, but I'll get back to the question itself. So how do we get data? So it's very important for us to have data independence. And what I mean by that is getting data direct from candidates. So to say it bluntly, some of these systems of records are where data goes to die. And, I've talked to customers that have 1 million candidates in their system of record, but only 5% they've talked to in the last like 3 to 6 months. So they have no idea if Darius moved to Florida or what his skill set now is. And in this fluid market where people are acquiring skills quickly, they're changing, it makes that even more stale. So, and stale data isn't valuable. I mean, you can use maybe interaction data to train models, but to me, it's really the source. And the source, if like the lifeblood of AI is data, the source of the data is where the action is happening is in those direct conversations with job candidates. So when I say our phone channel, our chat agent channel, so how we're actually getting it. So we'll ingest resume data information and we'll do the basic stuff, which is ingesting information based on documentation that already exists, whether that's on the web or in a resume or in a past application.
Mm-hmm.
But our new data, and then we'll do certain things to augment the data. So inferring certain skills, like if they say this in the resume, we might know this. We also have a lot of data on the companies. So you can do a search like, I want junior support professionals that have worked at high growth companies that had a small product team. So because we know, like, it might be different working at Uber when they're at 5 employees versus when they're at 5,000, we know enough to contextualize what's in your resume. And then we're talking to you. And because we're talking to everyone, not just the 5% that you have human time to talk to, we're collecting a lot of data. Another piece of that strategy is like giving back to candidates. So if we can form a relationship with candidates through coaching, through interview prep, through suggesting other jobs to them. So our goal around an outcome for every candidate allows us to be in situations where we're collecting data much more quickly, and the only thing we're using the data for is to provide better jobs to the candidates that are talking to us, and to train our models, not, sell to a job site or something like that, obviously.
Yeah. Maybe we can move it. You mentioned giving back to the candidates. We could do a little bit of that here. So I believe that, the future is AI powered employees, right? And so, I mean, not literally you're planning, not planning a chip, but more so just employees having an ability to leverage the right tools that makes that person, that individual, that professional a force multiplier. So if it's a financial analyst, that person can leverage AI tools to do 3x, 5x the work they would have done otherwise. So a couple questions for you. One, just being in the market yourself, have you seen companies that start to look for folks with, and I don't mean like machine learning engineers, data scientists, people who we know to be involved in AI on a daily basis, but are companies starting to look for candidates who have that skill set? Two, are there particular tools that you would recommend that, folks start to dig into to increase their productivity?
Yeah, great question. So a couple things. I even saw something going so far as to say, I saw a job description someone posted on LinkedIn, and it talked about the skills they need, and it said only AI agents can apply. So they weren't even accepting humans. So that's an extreme. But I definitely agree with what you're saying in terms of being a force multiplier. So like we have a few employees at Humanly that are AI agents, but really what that is the main reason why people want to work here or want to work at any startup is really to create an impact. So we're saying that, hey, with these agents to help you, you're going to be creating a much bigger impact than maybe you would have been able to at a company that wasn't using AI. So I agree with you in like the purpose of bringing on AI. As far as like the skill, I guess I'll plug our, like, where that data thing I was talking about for candidates, it will talk to them and tell them what skills they need. But yeah, no, I definitely think, right now, and I think it's an important thing, because a lot of companies that are doing AI right now are pitching AI is going to automate everything, which it might automate a lot. But you also then need to have the second part of the story. Okay, now where is the role of the human? And it's an exciting and big role, but it's not one that I think is extremely clear. People just say AI is going to do everything so you can focus on strategic stuff, but then they don't define all, like, how important the human is, which to us is definitely a big piece of what we're selling. And so what those folks would do and what skills they need. I definitely think I see the role of engineer and product manager kind of converging to some degree over time. I think good engineers that are problem focused are always going to have a place. There are some tasks involved in engineering, even in PM, that can be automated. So I think having folks that are technically minded, that know how to orchestrate workflows within AI, know how to architect it, like prompt engineering type stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
when and where to use AI is really important. So how, when, and where to use it, and when not to. So I think the role of engineer will be, you're coding and you're building, but you're also very in tune with how you solve this customer problem using what's at your disposal, including AI. So I think knowing about things are moving very fast. I think Sam
Right.
Altman I forget the exact number, but he was saying that AI is moving, I don't know, like 100x the speed or 50x the speed of SaaS. So like the specific skills might change, but knowing how these things work, how they collect data, how they use the data to self-learn, and knowing the code frameworks are very important. So I don't know if that was specific enough, but I would challenge like traditional engineers to get as close to the customer problem as they can. And then I would encourage PMs to get more technically focused, because, it really shouldn't be about obsession with the solution like AI. It should be obsessing with the problem and then knowing all the different ways you can solve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I like to kind of expand on the focus on, the technical folks. And I'll put like product manager inside of the technical umbrella, just so we can look at the kind of other folks. Like maybe you're in a customer service role, or, there are things that help you to learn faster, which I look at LLMs and say, hey, look, there may be something that is outside of the scope of what you have learned in your career, but you could work with the LLM to learn it pretty quickly, right? In terms
Yep.
that you understand. So that's like, okay, that's one tool to put in your back pocket. And another one is a little bit more of a lift, but you and I were talking about workflow automation prior to the call, but hey, learn the workflow automation tools, because there may be portions of your job where you're like, hey, look, here's how we've done it. But as an individual, I can be a little bit faster at my job if I can figure out kind of this automation element. And now you're getting some of these tools, platforms that are like no code or low code, that individuals, spend a little bit of time with the platform, will produce, extraordinary results in terms of your productivity.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you added that, because I realized I didn't answer the second part of your question around like the tools and stuff. But yeah, I 100% agree with what you said. And anytime you're creating content using like a Chat GPT or Gemini, which are really like, I'd look at them as very well read but somewhat naive humans. And if you're taking the content and then adding to it, that's the way to go for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I know we're coming up on time here, so I don't want to go over on your next meeting, but we are, still in the early phases of 2025. Curious if there's anything we should be looking out for humanly, or even any announcements that you'd like to make.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'll be posting once a week kind of new features we developed. This week, we launched a meetings feature, so using AI agents for scheduling. And next week, I won't give that away yet. But yeah, you can come to our website, humanly.io. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can also email me at prem@humanly.io. Really, where we're going is furthering this channel strategy. So any channel by which you're talking to candidates, Humanly wants to be there. Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, appreciate kind of the download on the HR space, the recruiting space, and glad we were also able to tap into the, how you also help candidates. I know a lot of folks are out there looking for that next opportunity. So they know that
Yep.
they can actually tap into Humanly as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.